Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Summer Road Tour powered by our friends at Echo, Site One, Kohler Engines, and NiceJob. We are out here in Lake Country. My boy Tony Rudolph woke up early, Tony, to set up.
Bud?
I'm doing great, man. This is quite the backdrop. We actually have this out on YouTube and Instagram. You set up your truck, trailer, mowers, blowers, all your power equipment.
Yes, sir.
Quite a setup. So you've been at this for a while, man. We were talking off air how you used to watch Geek to Freak as so
Yes,
many
sir.
others did. And that kind of got you going into now, being out here in beautiful Lake Country, Reynolds Plantation, big money out here. You got a good company. So tell us how you got started in the lawn care industry.
Yeah, so my dad started his business in 1986. And so he's done it my whole life. And I grew up working with him after school.
Down here at Lake Oconee area?
Well, we live in Tucker,
Okay.
Georgia. Until year 2000, they were in a business where they would drive from another business that they did as well, where they would drive from Atlanta to Augusta. They stopped in Madison one day for lunch, and they went into that little downtown part, and they're like, I don't know where we are, but we want to live here.
Wow.
Because all they knew is the big city,
Yeah, and for those of you who've never been to Madison, Georgia, I think they do a lot of movies there, actually. It's like this old, southern, historic, good people town. It's like, when I drive through there, I literally like, am I in a movie? Like, this looks too perfect. So I understand the nostalgia of Madison. It's a beautiful little Georgia southern town.
Yeah, and so they, back then they were eating lunch. They got one of the little books, real estate books. It's before, look it up on Google and all that. Yeah. And so they got the book. They called the guy, and went and looked at some houses. Now, there was a lake surrounding there. I'm not sure if they were 100% aware that there was even a lake here or not.
Wow.
But there's a lot of potential around the lake for lawn landscape. And so my dad, growing up in New York, met my mom. They got married. They moved to Atlanta because he loved Georgia compared to New York. But they lived in the city. Like my parents, or my mom's parents live in a part of Atlanta, semi-close to that Tucker area. I forget the actual town where they're at. But anyway, so they came, after talking to this real estate guy, our first house we bought on the south end of the lake, right where the river comes into the lake. It was very shallow. And so I was 8 years old, and I have a younger brother too, so he was 6-ish. And right where the river comes in, we had a little house on the lake. And so it's a big marsh land, and it's, where the river comes into the lake, that's the shallowest end of the lake.
Right.
And then it gets deeper as you move down the lake. So it was a great spot for us growing up because you could almost walk all the way across the lake and it still wouldn't even be over your head if you're an adult, you know what I mean? And so we grew up there, and my dad, moved here and started building his lawn and landscape business here in all the big gated communities and stuff. And so growing up with him, and I was homeschooled. So a lot of times, maybe lunchtime, maybe my mom would bring me out to where he was. And, I remember really not liking it as a young kid. My mom would bring him out, and he's doing a lot clearing. He's doing this and that. Because my dad also does a lot of other things. He builds seawalls and, cuts trees and does all this. And he has a, lawn care route and all that stuff as well. So growing up, my first ever lawn I cut was our Tucker house. We had a small brick house on Fellowship Road in Tucker. And it was with my dad's 1996 44-inch Toro Pro Line T-bar walk-behind,
Wow.
Zero turns really were not a thing then. They really weren't, like, I don't know if they even came out. My dad actually had a Dixon. That was probably one of the first zero turns that ever came out. It was chain-driven. It was blue. It was a weird-looking thing. But anyway, pretty much it was just walk-behinds and push mowers, and some people had tractor, steering wheel. And so my dad's first, new commercial piece of equipment was a Toro 44, I believe it's a 44-inch, yeah, and that's in 1996, and he still has that mower because it's we've listed a few times, and he's like, no, I can't sell it, and so he ends up pulling it back out, put it back in the shed, and so he still has it, in his barn today, and I cut my first yard with that mower.
Wow.
At 8 years old, and then, and me and my brother, we grew up doing it. We grew up doing it together and doing it with him. My brother still works with my dad as well. and it was our plan as I became an adult for my dad to help me start my own business. So 2011, I started just like everyone else started. I had 0 yards. I put out cards, and then as we got married, me and my wife in 2012, she helped me. She was passing out cards, flyers, doing all the things. I borrowed a mower from my dad for that very first yard I got, and man, just like everyone else, it was so bad. My first couple yards, it seems like when you're starting the business, I don't know what it is, but you just like attract the worst yards possible. So I had this yard with this older couple, and they had this big old garden in the back and stuff, and so they hired me to do the yard. But then every time I go there, they would pull up chairs like this, and they would watch every single thing I did, every single weed I pulled, and so I think I charged them $75, but I end up being there 2-3 hours or more every visit, and maybe that's just how it is when you first start, but what am I going to do? This is one of the 2 yards I had, and I had another yard that was kind of underpriced as well. But I continued on. I didn't give up. I still continued with those 2 yards, and even that guy, they sit out there and watch me in those weeds. I did that yard for like 4 years.
Wow.
Eventually, I had to let them know that, hey, I'm moving on from that yard, and they were heartbroken. He's like, what? Did my wife say something mean to you? Like, what is this? And and it was so horrible. And thankfully, my dad was super nice, and he would let me borrow his old walk behind and mowers at different times when I started those first couple yards. I saved up $1,250. I bought my first mower, which was a Toro 44-inch Pro-Line walk behind floating deck. It was a belt drive too, but this one was much newer. This was probably like a 0203. Bought it from a kid that was like a right-hand man in a big company over in Winder, and he was selling it because he bought that mower from the big company, and he had a brand new Walker mower sitting there. He was like 14 years old or something, and I'm like, man, like this guy was already like way far ahead of me. He had this brand new mower there. He was selling this third-hand walk behind he had. So that kind of blew me away or whatever. But anyway, for me and my wife, that was a big deal. It was my first mower. Bought it from him, loaded it up, and that was the first piece of equipment I bought. I bought that belt drive walk behind, and it was a great mower. Very similar to the one Naylor has, his old one, his first one, but even a little bit older than that. But it looks very similar to that same setup. So, and then kept going on for years. That was 10 years ago, whatever. And moved on from then, sold that, bought a little a Yazoo Keys rider, which they're not even in business anymore. It looks kind of like a Husqvarna. It's red though. And here's the thing, and then here's how you come in, social media and all that. So second year maybe in business, first year, and I just growing up, I enjoyed doing my business. I enjoyed getting started in my business, but I always felt like we're that weird family. We have lawn care business. My dad has a big property down the street. And my dad's had big companies and small companies over my lifetime. And I just always felt like we're that weird family. We're that weird landscaping family. And I didn't see the big picture of it. You know what I mean? So me and my wife were renting this little house, little trailer home that my dad had when we first got married. And I was researching something, trying to build a business. I didn't have a blower. I didn't have anything at first, and so I bought one of my dad's old BR600s. That was
after you mowed, what'd you do? Broom it off or what?
Well, what
just
I did,
left it in the driveway.
My dad had an old BR600 similar to this one, and it was blown up. He has a bunch of them in the shop. Because they have a lot of them, and it was blown up. And so I think he even gave it to me or sold it to me real cheap. I think he gave it to me though because it was blown up. So I took it to our local steel dealer, paid them I think $250 or something. They put a new short block, a new engine on it, and so there we go. Then that was my first blower. And my dad gave me that KM steel.
Yeah.
So at first I had the blower attachment that went on the KM, and which that's okay. I mean, it works good for what it is. And so I had that for a while, and I ended up giving that attachment to my little brother. But anyway, so I had that for a while, saved up, had them rebuild the engine on one of my dad's old blowers, and then that's how I got started. But anyway, back to the social media, back to all of it. So I was researching something, I forget, on YouTube, and I came across Greg Chisholm, Geek to Freak Lawn Care somehow.
Geek to Freak. Well, let's do this, Tony. we're going to hear from the summer tour sponsors, which we're very grateful that they're giving us the opportunity to come out here and have the time and space to come to your shop, see your setup, and big thank you to Echo, NiceJob, Site One, Kohler Engines for making all this possible. Coming up, I want to hear this isn't the first time we've heard this story, friends, how Greg Chisholm, cutting that grass, making that cash, lit a fire for you to end up getting in the big gated communities and now having this thriving business that's changing your family tree. We'll hear more of Tony's story coming right up. All right, friends, we are having a great time out here in Lake Country. I was driving out to Tony's house thinking, I want to buy a plot of land out here and build a house and a pole barn. And Tony, before you tell us how social media impacted your life, I was this close. I mean, this close to moving out here and opening a neighborhood, a business in the neighborhood you work in because there's so much space. When you live in traffic, it's like, there is no traffic out here.
Right.
And there's so much money down here. I think I saw it was the third richest per capita area in the United States of America, that little cluster where you work in the Reynolds area.
Agree. Yeah, I haven't researched that, but I'm sure.
I mean, I was down here one time, I'm working, and Ben Roethlisberger's and the Pittsburgh Steelers are on this boat just hanging out. And I was talking to my customer. I was like, did you know Ben Roethlisberger is your neighbor? And he's like, yeah, Big Ben, he lives in that house. I was like, bro, because I like football. I was like, that's just so cool. But then, not that it's just celebrities. It's a bunch of business folk you ain't never heard of.
Right.
They have so much money that they can have a $2-3 million lake house that they just go to part-time.
Yeah. 93% of millionaires are regular average folk. Even, most athletes lose most of their money within, a few years. You know? And so that's a whole interesting thing, but
so anyway, I was on the phone. There's an apartment complex down here by the Waffle behind the new Ace Hardware that they built. That apartment down there. I mean,
Crossroads.
Don't tell everyone my business. So I mean, I'm literally talking to them. I'm like, all right, it's deposit. It was $1,400. I mean, I had everything. And I was this close to pulling the trigger. And it's probably the Lord that paused me, because what ended up happening was I didn't move here, because it would have been there wouldn't have been no Green Industry Podcast, because I would have just built a big business on the lake, and, it would have been successful, I think. But what happened was I stayed. Me and Mr. Producer really became great friends. And then the podcast was birthed, and then things went a whole different direction, where now we have a worldwide show that, is helping Lawn Bros.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, there's always that where you live is where I want to live.
Oh man! Well, you should have asked me about that. I would have told you, man, you should definitely move down here, because I'm getting about 5 calls a day right now, and I'm not accepting any of them.
Well, even the customer, you went out to one of my customers' house, and we cleared out 115 trees for the football coach back there, and they're telling me all the time, like, Paul, use some brain cells, man. Move down here. You will make more money than you could ever count, because the demand for landscaping for professionals like yourself. Anyway.
Yeah, there's thousands of homes here and there's, the amount of, there are a few, there are a lot of companies, but like you're saying, I mean, there's just, the opportunity is endless, because there's either two types of people that live here. Either one, they're retired and they don't want to mow, all right? Or number two, like your friend, there's some, maybe young people, professionals that are travelers and stuff. This is a weekend lake home. They're not going to come here and mow all weekend.
They actually live out in Vegas now, full time, and then they got 4 houses. Yeah. They're so rich.
And so that's a big percentage of these communities are one of those two categories. There's actually probably more heavy leans into the people that are retired, which, has its pros and cons. It's kind of annoying, because a lot of them like to come out and chat with me when they see me pull up, But there's a huge demographic. Like, nobody in those communities probably even has a lawnmower. You know what I mean? Like, nobody does that.
Well, and Tony, because I was watching the competition, so to speak, when I was working in Reynolds, and there was a lot of chucking the trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I I show up with a golf shirt on,
Right.
and it's breathable and stuff. But it's like I go professional all the way around, and you can get the work when you know what you're doing and you present yourself with a little bit of relational intelligence. So anyway, you got me all fired up here. I'll be on Zillow tonight, moving down the street. Back to the story with Geek to Freak. You're YouTubing or Googling something, how to sharpen. I don't know. You're Googling something basic. The algorithm was obsessed with a guy named Greg Chisholm, Geek to Freak. He had 13 billion views, made more money than he can count. But anyway, back then, none of that had happened yet. It was all on the uphill for him.
Right.
And you swung in at the right time and started watching him. He has like a 21 or 22-inch push mower. He's doing 25 little dollar lawns in the rough part of Illinois, St. Louis area. But he does these voiceovers. And they're just mesmerizing because he's like, oh, here comes the neighbor. What the hell? What? And just, I'd watch for hours and hours and hours.
Yes. And
I wasn't the only one.
Right.
And it sparked a hunger in you, like, this is fun. This guy's having a blast, cutting grass, making cash.
Yeah. Yeah. So back then, like I said, I felt like we were just kind of a weird family that did this because it's hard to, we know a few local guys and everything. And also, we moved here in 2000. There was like a tenth of the people out here, a tenth of the houses, a tenth of the contractors, all that here then than there are now. This area's exploded. There's 300 houses going up right now, like as we speak in these communities, and there's just people flooding out of the city, which for me and my dad, we always talk about, oh man, we're going to have to move because like now, like some of these main roads are so busy right now, you can't even turn left or anything. Like people are flooding to this area. But anyway, so I was researching stuff and my wife, we were first married. She's like, what are you doing? Like, and I was explaining it to her and then she started watching with me. We both watched these videos. So like, and he was putting them out like almost like every day. Like, so like every night I find myself staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, just like watching his video, like just watching him cut back and forth, getting the sneaky snacks,
Oh, the background music. All right, freaks.
I feel like he just used that same song like
he did.
all the time. But it's okay. Like, it worked for him. Like and it's so weird. I don't know how he did it. Like, I love everybody in the lawn care community now. And there's people that have videos now that are, the quality and everything is maybe 10x what his was, but for some reason,
nothing like that connection. He's the only one, and the other guys are my friends. I'm not. I'm cheering for all y'all. Nobody could make a video like Greg where you just like literally are like, I gotta go get some popcorn, but I gotta pause it. Like you can't wait to get back and watch it. It was like, it was so entertaining because he brought you in through the lens of the camera, and like you were just there with him, and it was incredible how he did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would watch hours and hours and hours. There's not been any other YouTuber, not even in another niche, where I've been like, this is so entertaining.
Yeah. And so, but I think there are so many guys today in the lawn care community. Overall, I think the lawn care community is better now than it was then. There's so many guys, so many awesome people that take their time to put into these videos and help people out and to do these things, and they put a lot of work into the videos. So, I do refer to Greg. I think he's an awesome guy. And he even replied to my message I sent him back then. I made my first lawn care video way back then. And but I'm saying there's, don't feel like the value was lost then and then it's different now, because it's not the case. Like you have this podcast, for example. We have so many of these channels, podcasts. Overall, the lawn care community as a whole is better now than it was then. So some of you guys maybe missed out, but maybe some of you, maybe overall you didn't. But anyway, so watching those videos in that little house back then, we had no kids. We were just starting our business. Emily's putting out cards, just the regular story. We started with 0 yards, 0 customers. And my wife is able to stay home now, and she was even then too. So we built it literally from ground up, 0. And so watching his videos, all right, and then, so fast forward a little bit, I seen him go to the expo. Now, my dad used to get Pro magazine growing up, so we would get the magazine, which now it's called Green Industry Pros. Mm-hmm. There are several great magazines. I still love reading those magazines. I get 3, 4 of them, different subscriptions of them in the mail now. But anyway, so I had seen that growing up, seen it in there, but, I just didn't really pay much attention to it until I seen it on his videos, and he went there and seen it. And then, so after that, this was 6, 7 years ago, I talked to my dad. I'm like, man, this expo thing, It's a bigger deal than I thought, and we got to go to it. So me and my dad, we went that first time. My first expo was and also back when I watched Greg, I watched Naylor, I watched Spencer Longcare when he first started. He used to be real big, and he had the, before he went through that transformation, weight loss transformation, he had a little Toro time cutter, a little homeowner mower, and first started out. I loved his channel as well, and of course Naylor started his, and there was a few others as well, in its infancy, but it really just broadened my horizons and really motivated my business and my life in general. And so I seen him go to the expo. I'm like, man, we gotta be a part of this thing, because after I watch it, maybe one, kind of like your story, maybe I seen him show it, maybe one, might even be in 2 years, maybe that I seen him show it. And so I went the first year, or I went the last year. It was at the pizza place,
Pleasure Ridge Pizza.
Yes, and which that was nuts. We were standing out there in the rain, and I was talking to all these guys, and man, when I go there, my wife said, "You're just chatting up." Like I talk to so many guys when I go to the expo. I literally can't even say anything, by the end of that day, because I spent the whole day. I just talk to random guys I see in the line. It's the expo is such an awesome. You're there with 30,000 like-minded people, and you don't even mean to do it, but it just like you just end up kind of sparking up conversations with people about random stuff, or maybe it's people from brands. You got to pay attention because you got to keep it moving, because you don't think about it. You'd be standing at one booth for 30, 40 minutes talking to this guy and that guy about a different thing. But the relationships are one of the most valuable parts of the expo. So anyway, I went the first year that it was at the pizza place, and that was awesome. It blew my mind how big it was. I think every one of you guys that are listening to this podcast, you need to come to the GIE+EXPO. It's the one time a year, which there are also other awesome events, but it's the one time a year we know for sure you can see each other in person.
And everyone's bringing their best.
Yes.
Toro's bringing their best. Ferris, Snapper. I mean, every brand, literally, I was just on the phone with Echo last week, and they're going to bring out their 2022 products at the expo. And so you guys can debate all day. What's better, Red Max, still, Echo? Well, you can actually go outside to the Red Max booth, to the Steel booth, to the Echo booth, Husqvarna booth. I mean, you can go to all of them and try them out in person and make your own decision. I mean, literally apples to apples all day long. And so the equipment, the networking, I agree with everything you're saying.
And so many guys, like they'll contact me on my channel later, like, I'm too busy this year, can't go because business and all that. And I just tell them, like, man, I'm managing 51-acre properties solo, and I'm gonna make it happen. So no excuses. And you guys need to make it happen.
What Brian Ring does, he has 6 or 7 employees. He'll literally shut the week down. He'll send out an email and say, our company policy, uses the word company. We got a company event. I think that's what it is. And we won't be working, October 18th to 22nd. And he lets them know plenty in advance. And then it is what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. So you guys, you need to be a part of it. You got plenty of time. This year I got a hotel walking distance to the expo, which is awesome. Yeah. But here's a tip for you guys. If you want to save some money, a couple of the years, what I have done, if I was a little later registering or whatever, I would book a hotel in a town that's maybe 20 minutes away. They don't really know that much about the expo. There will be a few overflow guys that go there, but hotels are much cheaper if you're willing to drive 20 minutes. So I come from the south, so I booked one south there a couple of years. I believe it's called Shepherdsville, I believe is the town there. And, the rooms are like half as much because they're not right there by the expo. And so that's a great tip for you guys, It is nice to get one really close, though, because, after we already drove 8 hours, it's nice to be able to just walk over. I mean, that's great. But I'm saying, if you want to save some money, you can do that for, a very low price. And then with promo code Paul, you get 50% off.
There you go,
and
Tony.
It's only $10 right now. I actually used your coupon code last year.
And that carries over.
Yeah,
you
it rolled
grandfather
over.
in. Yep.
And I actually ended up rolling my hotel over, too, to this year. So it is what it is. But, so use promo code Paul. That's pretty easy to remember. And, so I think all you guys need to be a part of it. And one last thing about the expo, go with a spirit of charity, with open-mindedness. If you go thinking you're just going to show up and you want everyone to serve you, you may be disappointed, because it's impossible to see every single person you know. There's 30,000 people there. All that stuff. But if you go with, hey, I'm going to go, I'm going to do my part to put forth to say hey to someone I don't know, to a fellow lawn bro. I'm going to do my part to say hey to even someone I do know, maybe on YouTube or something. But go with this spirit of, hey, I'm going to go and contribute, and I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to say hey to people. If you do that, it will be awesome. And then for me, I love to film the expo. People love to watch GIE videos on my channel from the expo. But a problem I ran into is like, so I had like 20, 30 videos from the expo last year, but then like I'm spending like my whole weekend like filming all this stuff, and I do interviews, talking with Mr. Bob Walker, and just all this stuff, and that's great. But then when I leave there driving back home, it's like, man, okay, why do we do this social media stuff? Is so we can actually meet up with guys. So I don't want to spend my whole time filming, because this is when I need to actually be talking with the guys. So that's something.
It's a balancing act.
Yes, because you be there, it's 8 a.m., it opens, you walk in, and it feels like 15 minutes later, it's like, all right, it's over.
It is crazy. I'm actually going in on, I think, earlier in the week, this week, and leaving out, I think, Friday afternoon. But it's like, you really need to try to be there all day Wednesday. Thursday, Naylor and the GIE+EXPO is putting on a huge event Thursday night. I think because of COVID stuff, the cave isn't quite the most friendliest place right now.
I gotcha.
So I think we're going to do it at the GIE+EXPO. They're going to host the rally. Friday morning, Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut, Spencer Lawn Care. Yep. There's a bunch of other folks. Corey Ballard.
Yep.
We're going to be doing a podcast interview in the main ballroom. Caleb Allman, Naylor, and myself are going to be podcasting live. They'll be up on stage. We'll interview those guys, super smart guys. Corey Ballard, Alan Haynes, Spencer Lawn Care, and TQ. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to do a part A, part B with Tony, because I want to dive totally into your business. So we'll do 2 episodes. So stay tuned. Make sure you're following the Green Industry Podcast, and in a future episode, we'll dive into actual Tony's current business. And then you can also watch this on YouTube, Green Industry Podcast with Paul Jamison, and follow us on Instagram at Green Industry Podcast. And, of course, follow Tony on YouTube, Tony's Lawn Care. So
thank you, bud.
We're going to continue the conversation in the next episode.